Hello. Today in this tutorial we will be using MotionBuilder in our workflow. We will be streaming in Captury Live into MotionBuilder and we will be streaming that into Unreal. Before you get started, you'll need a license for MotionBuilder, you'll need obviously a license for Captury, and you'll need to download a couple of plugins as well. So in the captury.com/resources, you'll find a MotionBuilder plugin. When you download that, the plugin should look something like this. They'll have a variety of different versions. I'm using MotionBuilder 2023. So I found the MotionBuilder 2023 from the folder that was provided. And I add that inside my Autodesk MotionBuilder bin x64 plugins folder. And this is how MotionBuilder will be able to link up with Captury. Actually, this is the Captury one right here. This is Captury Live. And then the one down here that I had selected earlier, that's actually the Unreal one. So the Unreal plugin for MotionBuilder is also one that you can get online. You can probably find it on a Git. It's just the MotionBuilder livelink plugin 2023, the one I'm using for now, but there's probably, newer ones as well, but I just don't know. Cool. All right, so those are in. Let's go ahead and start off with Captury. So here I have this video I shot in Japan of two performers. They are two performers kind of performing like a breakdancing animation style. So this was captured using Captury. Don't want to get too much into details with Captury, but you can always reprocess your data. You can change settings to kind of improve the quality of the raw data before going into MotionBuilder, where you'll use certain tools to kind of clean it up. But in the case scenario that we're using now is that we're using MotionBuilder to live stream into Unreal. Reason being is because in MotionBuilder, what we want to do is we want to be able to edit changes, move things around on the character to our liking, so that when it streams over to Unreal, it looks as we want it to look. Now, Unreal as of 5.7, I mean, it's 5.7 now, but there's, I think since 5.6, even before that, there's been new auto retargeting tools or rigging tools that are really great. So you can actually also do your mocap adjustments in Unreal using Unreal's IK rig, as well as its retargeter. So when it maps over, you can make adjustments to floor planting, stride walking, adjust the hip size, etc., which is great. I think for certain workflows, if let's say live, sometimes having MotionBuilder and having a way to edit it is good. But if you're trying to do something where you just kind of wanted to work out of the box, I like to just use Unreal. But this is also a useful way to actually also do it. So we have two different characters that are going to be streaming into MotionBuilder. One of the things I also want to mention is make sure if right now for this demo I have Captury, Unreal, and MotionBuilder all running in the background, which is not recommended. I would say if you're running MotionBuilder, run it on a separate machine than Captury and run it as a separate machine as Unreal to allow the maximum performances, especially if you're running into an Unreal scene that's kind of heavy. You don't want to take a performance hit on the computer when it's also working with trying to get MotionBuilder running and Capturing. But for the demo, this is how we have it. So just make sure you have your IP address handy because that's how it's going to communicate to the different softwares. So let's go into MotionBuilder. I'm going to go ahead and bring in a character that I like. And I'm going to bring it in. So this is just the default character I have. It's a little proxy rig. It already came in characterized because it was something that I had set before. But if your character comes in, the first thing you're going to want to do is get it into a T-pose, and then you're going to want to go to define skeleton, which then you would select the bones associated to what bone you need to, and then map everything out, and then lock it. And that will allow you to then do your retargeting in MotionBuilder. But luckily we have this character already in there. I want to use a second of the same character, so I'm going to go ahead and do File, Merge, and I'm going to bring in that same character again. This time I'm going to hit Apply Namespaces. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm actually bringing in the exact same character, in which what's going to happen is you're going to have naming clashes, possible merging of the asset. So usually I like to just add a namespace and hit merge. So this now means in my scene we have one called all and another one called SK base mesh flow v2 all. So under those, you'll see the body, the geo. Open up the body, there's a rig. Open up the body, there's a rig. Cool. All right, so we have both of our characters. Make sure that it's also locked, the character definition. If not, it won't work. But both of our characters are now characterized, meaning that they're ready to take any data coming through. All right, so let's go to our asset browser. And if you put the right plugins in the right location, as I suggested earlier, you should have a Captury one and an Unreal Engine livelink. So I'm going to grab the Captury one. I'm going to drag it into my scene, which then under devices here, you'll see it there. It's going to ask me for an IP address. So I'm going to put the IP address of my machine. Now, again, if you're streaming this to another machine, you'd get the IP address of the other machine so then they can get, or the capture machine, so the capture machine, so it knows where the capture machine is pulling on. Again, all of these computers have to be on the same network. That's how it's able to connect easily. So now that we hit OK, the next thing I want to do is I want to turn off auto characterize because I want to characterize the character myself. I found it that when I leave auto characterize and it brings them in characterize, there's an offset that I can't seem to actually fix. So I'd rather do this manually. So I have that turned off. I'm going to hit live, which then means it's going to make the live connection. It's noticing that there's an unknown and an unknown 2. Then under model binding, I'm going to create the skeletons, as you can see there. And then before I hit live, which will then show me the characters, so I mean I can show it to you now. You'll see the characters streaming in. So I'm going to turn that off. And I am going to take those 2 Captury skeletons. Because the root starts on the ground, the problem I run into is that when it does the retargeting, it seems to have an offset that I don't like. So I'm going to grab both the hips, kind of move them closer to the proximity of the character. We lower it down a little bit, somewhere around there. Okay, I'm happy with that. So then I'm going to go to the blue button, define skeleton. And I'm going to define the first one, which is unknown root. I'm going to right click on the root bone, go to the bone, and since this is I'm using the HIK naming convention, similar to Mixamo, so that means that it should find every bone, which gives me a green check mark. I'm going to hit lock. Next thing I want to do is then create another. Oh, actually, I'd like to name this. So I'm going to go to Edit, Definition, Rename. Call it mocap 1. And then I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to define another skeleton. Select the root of the second avatar. And then I'm going to go to HIK and map it. Then lock it. Cool. And let's go ahead and name that. Edit, definition, rename, mocap 2. Okay. So now we should have our 2 mocaps and our 2 characters ready to be retargeted. So let's go ahead and start off with proxy. We'll go to mocap 1. Then we'll go to the second character. We'll go to mocap 2. So that means that now both characters are driving, both mocaps are driving my characters now. So I'm going to go back to the Captury IO and hit that live. So now we have our characters being retargeted onto our avatars. And then this could be streamed into Unreal or Unity, wherever you'd like, so you can get real-time streaming data over to your game engine. Now let's go ahead and kind of discuss the cool things about using MotionBuilder. So I can go to the proxy character, which is my first one. And I can go under, let's say, retargeting. I want to match source. So it's going to snap to where that location is at, right? Cool. Next thing I like doing is I like going all the way down to the bottom where it says floor contact, and there's a feet floor contact. I turn that on, so then that makes it where the feet don't go through. And then other things I like doing is sometimes I like to also use the realistic shoulder solving. So I'm going to change that to 50. And what that does is typically a lot of mocap systems won't have a lot of shoulder movement. Just it's really hard to track, it seems. So turning that on to 50, what we'll do is when you raise your arm up, it'll raise the clavicle bone without affecting the position of the arm, which allows you to have more movement that's kind of natural. So I like to have that. And then, things like right now it's set to 0. You could always change the hip height if you need to. If your character, if your character is a little shorter, maybe it's a smaller character or it's a tall character. So you can do things where you can also adjust the hip height. As you can see, I'm moving them all the way up higher, or I can make them really low if that's what I want. So that's the cool thing about using MotionBuilder. You can easily make your edits in real time without breaking anything. So I like those ones on that one. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. So the second character, I'm going to match source, so it's going to pop them forward. Then I am going to, and also I noticed, we'll look at it afterwards, but I'm going to turn on feet floor contact. And then lastly, like what I liked was, again, the realistic shoulder solving. Let's change that to 50. Now, one thing I noticed that I didn't like was when the character first started. Let's go back to Captury. Stop. So when the character first started, the character's feet are straight, right? Let's take a look at what it looks like in Captury. So our second character in the yellow, you can see the feet are straight, but because of the position of the hip, it thinks that it's trying to bend down because it's not in the same place. So we can go back to that proxy one, and we can go to the hip offsets, kind of adjust it to where we feel like it's good. I think let's try 12. Let's try 10. Maybe 8. All right, let's try 9. Cool. All right, so let's say I'm like happy with that. So that's, again, strengths that you can do there. I think other things is in MotionBuilder, there's these little like kind of nubs things here. So if you move them closer, that's saying, okay, that's the edge of the foot. See where these are at? It's like, okay, that's the edge of the front foot. It's good to kind of move these to kind of close to the position of your character. This will allow you to, when it's doing floor contact and things like that, it's able to, it's really able to just kind of roll over nicely. It won't go. You won't see the offset in the feet. It matches pretty well. But again, you want to do this to both of your characters. I just did it just to the feet just to show you here. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to Captury, hit play, and then let's go back to MotionBuilder. So there's my animation. And just because I don't want to see the other skeletons, just want to see my characters. See, as they're rolling up their arms, it is moving a little bit of the clavicles, which is nice. So now we're ready to go in and start streaming this into Unreal. So let's go back to our assets. We're going to go to Unreal Livelink, drag that in. We're going to hit these 3 little dots, and we're going to find the characters we want to stream in. So the characters we want to stream in are the ones under body, which is root, and under the second one, which is this one. So I'm going to hit add. I'll call this character 1. Call this one character 2. Okay, so all I really have to do now is just hit live, online. That means that now it's sending out data. Since I'm on the same machine, I don't have to change my unicast endpoints, but if you're streaming to another machine, that's where you would hit add, type in the IP address followed by the 2 dots, and then 4 unique numbers for a unique port. Usually you can do 6666 or 8888, whatever you want, as long as it doesn't conflict with anything, so give that a shot. Now that that's streaming over, we can go back to Unreal, and in Unreal I can go to Windows, Virtual Production, Live Link, hit Add Source. For Captury, you would go to the Captury one and add the IP address so you can see just the Captury skeletons coming in from Captury. Or you can do Message Bus Source, in which then you would see the mobile live link if it's connected correctly. And there is our character 1 and there is our character 2. So now it's saying we're getting data coming from MotionBuilder in here that's ready to be applied to my character. So now this is the character I have. In order for me to get the animation data applied to this, I have to create an animation blueprint. So I'm going to right click on this, go to create, and animation blueprint. Okay. And I'm just going to name this. It's a long name, that's why it made sense to just kind of, okay, animation blueprint underscore char1. Okay. Just kind of minimize these just because it's running a lot of files. Okay. So I created the animation blueprint character 1. We're going to do another one. We're going to right click, create animation blueprint. Animation blueprint underscore character 2. All right. So the first character, I'm going to open that up. And I'm going to right click and go to live link because that's the live link source that we want to pull onto it. And then we're going to do the output to the input. Find character 1. Hit compile. Hit save. Next we're going to open up character 2. Right click. Live link. Connect it. Our character 2. Compile. Save. I'm going to close this. Now I'm able to bring in those 2 animation blueprints into my scene. I'm going to zero them out so they're both in the same position as intended. And now let's go ahead and simulate. So I'm going to hit these 3 dots, go to simulate. And now we should be getting our mocap data in. Because I'm running again on the same, on a pretty, on all softwares on a, not the greatest laptop, we do get a little bit of a latency issue. But that's something that once you get all of them streaming on separate machines, you should be able to get what you need. But again, what's cool about it, like you saw how we changed the hips, so we didn't make the feet so much, the hips so low on the character on the right. We were to make the adjustments needed in order for us to stream it into Unreal.